Hey, it's good to see you back here in the shop. So in my How to Build Wheels the Easy Way, which is a huge hit, close to 700,000 people have watched it now, and hundreds of people have built wheels by it. Thanks for all the great comments, and keep building those wheels. If you have any questions, keep sending them in. I'm happy to help. But in that video, we build a cross-spoke wheel. So cross-spoke wheel, the spokes cross each other. That's the most common wheel out there. And with that kind of wheel, you can build front wheels and rear wheels. You want to cross spokes on rear wheels. You want to cross spokes on any wheel that has disc brakes, because those wheels have torque at the hub, and the cross spokes resist that. And for driving the wheel when you're pedaling, twisting the hub, cross spokes resist that too. So you always cross spokes on rear wheels, at least one side. But on front wheels, if you want to, and you have a hub that allows you to do it, you want to check with the manufacturer, you can radial spoke the wheel. On a radial spoke wheel, the spokes go directly from the hub to the rim in a straight line. Radial is actually one of the oldest lacing patterns. So that's what we're going to do today. I got an old hub and a pretty old rim here that I'm going to put together for an old bike I'm fixing up, and I'm going to radially spoke it. So we'll get working on that right away. The thing to know is there's 3 different ways you can do it, and I'll show you the way I'm going to do it, but there's 2 other ways. You can lace it with all the heads on the inside of the hub. You can lace it if you wanted to. It's a little strange, but you could lace with some on the inside, some on the outside. When you put all the spokes heads in, you get a wider bracing angle. So you get a slightly more stiff laterally wheel. If you stood up and you sprinted or you climbed a hill standing up, you might feel that the wheel's a little stiffer. But we're not going to lace that way. We're going to lace with all the heads out because it's aesthetically pleasing. I even did a poll on my YouTube that you might have answered, and I asked everybody, how do you do it? How would you like to do it? Wheel builders out there. And overwhelmingly, everybody agrees with me that heads out is the most appealing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to build the wheel, heads out, radial wheel. Now I'll show you how it's done so you can build your own radial wheel if you want. A radial spoking pattern is a great pattern because it's relatively easy. There's no spokes crossing. Pretty obvious what's happening. The spokes are just going straight from the hub to the rim. You don't need much to put any wheel together. You can use your hands. I use a little spoke feeder tool. This is made by the company EVT, Efficient Velo Tool. It's called the Mulfinger. I like it. It's a machine tool. I like to support the cool companies in the industry, and EVT is a good one. And I have a Park spoke wrench, which we won't use during the lacing process. We don't need to. If you don't want to buy a tool like this, you can use anything. See, it just has a pointed end. You could, I've had readers tell me they use a toothpick. A toothpick could break. But if you're gentle, it'll probably work for a while. Or you could just take a spoke. See how I took a spoke and I cut the elbow end of the spoke? So I cut this end of the spoke off. And then I just bent a loop in it so I have something to hold on to. You could bend it wherever you want. See how it's threaded on the end? So with this, you can just screw on the few threads, and then you can hold on to it. You want to hold on to it so you don't drop it all the time. And you definitely don't want to drop it and have it go inside the rim. If it were to fall inside the rim in this hollow, it's a pain to get them out. So that's a simple tool you could make. This is a 28 spoke wheel, so there's 28 spokes. So I've got the spokes. I actually treated the spokes already with SpokePrep, which is like a little lubricant and kind of like a plastic dip on the end of the spokes. You don't need to do that. You could lubricate them with oil. I have another video that talks about SpokePrep, and I can link to that at the end if you're interested in that. So whenever you put any wheel together, you could lace it up however you want, as long as you got the spokes in there and you got the wheel round and true and tight. It'd be a good wheel. But if you're a wheel builder, a pro builder especially, you want to attend to little details because it shows that you care, and you can do it, and a customer might expect it. But it's nice to make everything line up. That's basically what we're doing. So I find the name, and this is a beautiful name on this hub, Mavic, the way they carved it into the hub. And then I want to get it so that when I'm riding down the road, I look down and I can read the Mavic from the seat of the bicycle, or when I stand next to the bike, I want to be able to read it. So if I put it this way, I'd have to turn the wheel around. But I want to be able to read this label from the right side of the bike and from standing over the bike. And I want to be able to read this label on the rim from the right side. And when I put the tire on, I'll line the tire label up on the right side if it's only on the right side of the rim. To do that, I keep track of those things. So I hold the hub like this, and I hold the rim like this. You may not be able to see it, but you can read it this way. If I flip it around the other way, you can't read it. And then I put the valve hole at the top, because the first spoke is going to go to the left of the valve hole. Now, I want to make it so that if you look through the valve hole, you can read the label of the hub. I want to line that up. That's pretty cool when you do that. You can see the label here. You can see the label here. You'll be able to see the label on the tire. They all line up. So the hub label won't be over here just in some random place. I'm going to put it right there below the valve hole so you can see it. Line it all up. So I'm a little fussy about these things. You don't have to be fussy, but if you build a lot of wheels, why not attend to little details like this? It makes them nicer. So I'll put the first spoke in, and I mentioned already that this is going to be a heads out spoke. So it's going to go in like this. All the spokes are going to go in like this. This is one of the things that's simple, that makes radial wheels simple. And then when you lace a wheel, you look at the holes in the rim, and they're either all in the same place or they're one's higher and one's lower. That's very hard to see sometimes. But on this particular rim, this one is higher, this one is lower, this one is higher, and this one is lower. The higher one goes to the higher hub flange. So this hub flange is up high, it's the top, the way we're holding the hub. And that means the spoke wants to go in this hole. And when we put the next spoke in, it's going to go in this hole. The spokes on the other side of the rim come from this side of the hub. So here we go, we'll just get started. We're going to put one spoke in, and we're going to put a spoke nipple on it. We're just going to thread it on a couple turns. Now, I already did this a few times to check that the Mavic logo is going to be directly under the valve hole. But the only way to do it is put some spokes in there and eyeball it. Look through the hole and see if it's centered. If it's not, just take the spokes out, move the spokes over, and keep trying until you get it to line up. I have a video about that too, where I show the whole process, and I do it with cross spoke wheel. But with any spoke wheel, it's just trial and error until you get it right. So now that we have one spoke in, this being a radial wheel, things are pretty simple. So I'm just going to put in the other spokes. I'm going to move this over here, maybe you see it a little better. Now on most wheels, or the way I like to build and the way I showed in the How to Build Wheels the Easy Way, I put the spokes in every other hole in the hub. But because this is a radial, we could put all 14 holes in at once. See how they all go in? Now we'll just bring them all up gently. And once you have them like that, get everything lined up so it's easy to work on. You can just go around. We're going to find each spoke, and we're going to put it in the proper hole. So that one's up, this hole in the rim is down, this one is up. So basically, because we're going to put 14 spokes in, we're just skipping a hole, one hole. And we just take our time. And we put the spoke in the hole, the nipple on the spoke. You turn the spoke nipple just a couple of turns. The only thing you want to do is make sure it doesn't fall off. If it does fall off, it might go inside the rim. That's what you don't want to happen. You don't need the spoke feeder tool yet. You just stick them through and you can see them coming out the other side. But at a certain point, we're going to need it. So now we got to the point where the not so easy to reach it. So put the nipple in there, then we can get the nipple on the spoke. When you put the spokes in, you don't want to scratch the rim. So you try to flex them. That way the sharp ends of the spoke doesn't scratch the rim. Almost done with this side. So there you go. That's one side done. Now you flip it over. And we're going to put the spokes in exactly the same way on the other side. And just put them through, straight through the other spokes. See how I'm putting them, the holes here, the other two spokes are here. So I wouldn't want to put this through and put it at an angle and have it come out in anything other than the one that's straight across from it, because we're not going to twist those spokes in any way. You could do that if you wanted to get fancy, but we're going to just do a radial spoke pattern, which is the simplest one, which is straight spokes. And to do that, we want the spokes on this side of the rim exactly like the spokes on the other side of the rim. So you just pay attention to what you're doing. If you put it in the wrong place, you can just take it out, put it back in again. You're always nice to spokes. Don't bend them. If they don't go through the hub easily, don't force them through. Gently coerce them to go through. I don't usually do this with gloves on. I put gloves on because it's a good idea to wear gloves. My hands are pretty beat up from years of doing this, years of working with chemicals, fixing bikes. Well, chemicals like degreasers and acetone and glues. But it's a good idea to wear them. So now we got all those in. Now we can You want to lay it down and lace it, you just gently get the spokes to do what you want. You can do one spoke at a time. A little less juggling with spokes. Still got one that's not cooperating. Now we can lay it down. Now see how the hub got kind of twisted here? So you could make a mistake. You could like do something like this. So we want to twist it back. Make sure everything's straight. We can go back to the valve hole if we want. And you know, now we have a way to look at it. This is 12 o'clock. We want this to be straight, everything to be straight. So you look at it from the top, you line it up, and you commit and put a spoke in. This spoke is straight, and it's between two spokes that are straight. So just like before, we're going to go around and put the nipples on. So there you go. So we've got all 28 spokes in, exactly the same pattern on this side as on this side. And we've got the label on the rim right here. You come right straight up. And you got the label, mark, brand on the hub right there. And if you look through the hole in the valve right here and you look straight down, you can see it perfect. So that's exactly what we wanted. So that's it for lacing the wheel. I don't know how long that took, but would have been faster without gloves. You can do it pretty quick, a radial wheel. There's no crossing to worry about, nothing really to get wrong. If you didn't worry about lining up the hub label and the rim label, then you wouldn't even have to spend that step. But I think that's a nice thing to do. Most people that own a bunch of wheels, they might be expecting that. So it's a good thing to do. So next we're going to true the wheel, make it true side to side, true it round, and we'll also tension the wheel, get ready to ride. To start truing and tensioning the wheel, the first thing we want to do is we want to get all the nipples on the spokes in the exact same position. You can see right here that this one, there's some threads showing right there, but you come over to this one and you'll see there's no threads showing. So what we want to do is go around and put them all in the same position. If all the nipples are in the same position on the spokes, it'll make the wheel close to round, close to centered, and close to true. And from there, you can start truing the wheel. But we want to do this first, adjust the nipples like this. This takes a little while to turn all the nipples down because you want to pay attention and get the nipples exactly right in the same spot. So I'm going to speed this up. If you hide all the spoke threads and you get done and the wheel's still loose, there's no tension in the spokes yet, you want to get some tension in the spokes. Not a lot of tightness, but you just don't want it all loose like this. So what you want to do at that point is you're going to go around and you're going to turn each nipple the same number of turns. So you count as you turn the spoke wrench and make sure that you turn them all the same number of turns. So you would go maybe 1 or 2 turns on each spoke nipple around the wheel because you don't want to overshoot it. So you take 2 turns and then check, 2 turns, and then check. And once the spokes start to get a little tension, that's when you'll be ready to true and tension and finish the wheel. But at this point, you just want to get it so that they're not super loose like this. You just want to get it so that they're all a little snug, which I'll show you once we get it there. The key thing here is to turn the nipples the exact same number of turns each, which will make sure that the wheel doesn't come out of true too much. When you're done with that step, which we call pretensioning the wheel, you won't have any loose spokes. If you wiggle the spokes, they'll all have some tension. The wheel will be somewhat tight. I mean, it's not tight. The spokes aren't fully tensioned yet, but if you pluck them, they start making a tone. There's tension, not looseness. You don't want any of the spokes in the wheel to actually be loose when you wiggle them, feel like a piece of string, or feel like the nipple isn't completely pulled into the rim here. It's tight here, and it's tight at the other end too. Not super tight, but just you've taken out any looseness in the spoke. That's the whole point of that step. So at this point, if we've done that job right, because it's a front wheel and the rim is directly centered over the axle, it means that the wheel is going to be pretty true side to side, pretty round up and down, and pretty close to center. So the next step is we'll put it in a truing stand and we'll finish the wheel. Or you could put it in the frame of your bike if you don't have a truing stand. You'd put it in the fork. Since I mentioned it, here's the basic setup if you wanted to finish the wheel in the front of your bike. If you're actually finishing the wheel on your own bike, the bike that the wheel is going to be used in, the advantage is that as you true and round the wheel and work on it, you can look between the gap on either side of the rim and you can make sure that the wheel is staying centered in the frame. And if the wheel is centered in the fork, you know you built a nice centered wheel. On the truing stand, my truing stand, a high quality Park truing stand, it self-centers the wheel. You see that it's centered the whole time. But you can do the same thing in the frame by just watching. Then to take out side to side, you just use your thumb as an indicator. And as you spin the wheel, you look at the gap between your thumb and the rim. And the cool thing about that is it's totally adjustable. You can move your thumb closer or further away. And you can even let it brush your thumb so you can feel when there's a wobble. That's a really nice thing. And then to check hop and dips, you can put a pencil right on top of the brake blocks. And that gives you a sight to look between the rim and the pencil and look at the gap. And you can adjust for high spots and low spots based on the gap between the rim and the pencil. So you can do a really nice job like that if you don't have a truing stand or you didn't want to buy one. I do have a truing stand, and it's the best tool for showing you what I'm working on because we can get up close and look at the wobbles and hops and any issues that we're fixing. I'll give the wheel a little spin. You can see what it looks like. So right away you can probably see it's got a little hop. I mean, that's probably a millimeter. It's exaggerated in the truing stand. It makes it look more like the wheel's terrible, but it's just minor deviation. And then it's got a little wobble to the left and the hop. But the cool thing is it's pretty much dead center between the pointers. And this truing stand shows center. So if it was off center, the wheel would be way closer to one side than the other. So basically we want to take out that little wobble to the side and we want to fix that hop. So we'll work on the spokes to move the rim to the right a tiny little bit to get that wobble out, and we'll tighten the spokes a little bit at that hop so that the rim doesn't come down right there. See it go down? That's a hop or a high spot. I've adjusted the pointers and brought this large one up higher here, and now when I spin the wheel you can hear it. Sometimes it's better to hear it than to see it. So you can see that it's rubbing right there. You can hear it. So I stop where it's rubbing and it's over these two spokes here, and maybe these spokes are on that side, these spokes are on this side. So I'm going to move it away from there. So I'll just loosen it a little bit, loosen it a little bit, and tighten a little bit, tighten a little bit. Maybe loosen a little bit over here. So we improved it a little bit. Much quieter. It's still rubbing a little bit, so we'll give it a little more. Tighten this time. Just tighten right there. Just a tiny little bit. Now it's really close. At this point, I'm going to adjust this again. I'm going to bring this large part of the tool just underneath the rim. It makes it easier. We'll be able to hear this too. Got to create a little gap. I will hear it. There's actually two. There's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That one there, really little. So we'll work on that one first. When you take hops out, high spots, you don't work on one side or the other, you work on both sides. So I'll snug this spoke a little bit. I'll tighten this spoke a little bit. Tighten this spoke a little bit. And tighten this spoke a little bit. Try again now. So we fixed the small one. Now we've got to fix the big one. That one starts about here, goes all the way to here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spokes. So we'll snug that spoke, tighten that spoke, tighten that spoke, tighten that spoke, tighten that spoke, and that one. Try again. No. They need more. Getting better. Still rubbing right there. So as you tighten spokes in one area, it puts pressure on all the other spokes. So you can chase the wobble around a little bit. But you just take care of one wobble at a time, don't worry about it. That heavy thump sounds to me like it might be the seam. Right there. Yeah, that's the seam where they joined the rim at the factory. On an aluminum rim, that's a common issue. So we'll just give that a little tension. Shoeing wheels is trial and error. Just take your time, keep working at it. Little by little, it'll get better. That seam can be tricky. Barely touching there. I think that's that original spot we started. Getting really good now. Now we'll go back, because each adjustment you make affects the other adjustment. We'll see if we knocked it out at side to side a little bit. Still pretty good. It moved a little bit to this, moved a little bit to the right, this way. It's really starting to get good. So each time you make adjustments like that, side to side and up and down, it's a good idea to squeeze the spokes to relieve any stress in there. To do that, you just hold on to 2 spokes at a time and give a gentle squeeze to just seat things. Just go around the wheel once like that. It's pretty good now. You might not call it perfect, but you could definitely ride on that wheel. You want the wheel to be all centered when you get it all finished. There are tools to check that. That's a dishing gauge. That's a tool that you use to check it. You can actually use it with the park truing stand while the wheel is in the truing stand. Thing is, though, if you have a park truing stand, it self-centers, as I already mentioned. If you don't have a self-centering truing stand, or you have a different type of truing stand, the way to check if it's centered or not is to adjust one pointer so it's just brushing against the rim. So we'll say that that's going to be this pointer here. And you'll know the wheel is centered if when you take the wheel and flip it around in the truing stand, if both sides of the rim are the same distance from that one pointer, then you know that you have the rim centered. And if you built the wheel in your fork on the front of your bike, then you'll know it's centered based on what it looks like. You can also slide your fingers between the wheel and the fork blades, and you can feel if it's centered or not. So that's several ways you can center a wheel, either with a dishing tool or in the whatever truing stand you're using. So we're done truing for roundness and side-to-side issues, and here's how the wheel came out. The camera can't see both gaps at the same time. So look at this gap on the right and you can see how round it is side to side and how round it is up and down. It's really good. Aluminum rims often have some issues and they're rarely absolutely perfect, but this is really good. So the next step will be finishing the wheel, which involves tensioning the spokes. Tensioning the wheel is all about getting all the spokes at a even tension and tight enough so that when you ride the wheel doesn't tend to loosen up. So you got to get them pretty tight. And to do that, you have to go around, and I call it layers of tension. So you're going to go around and tighten each spoke the same amount. Then you'll check the wheel to see if it's still true and round and centered. And then you'll do it again. And you repeat this 4, sometimes 6 times, depending on how tight your spokes are already after the initial truing and rounding and centering steps. And at that point, the spokes will be tight enough so that you've got a really good wheel. So it just takes a little time, basically. We're going to go a half turn at a time. That just, you take the spoke wrench, you just turn it halfway. That'll be 1 layer, basically, on each spoke nipple. I'll go around the wheel 1 time at the regular speed that I would do this. Just try very carefully to turn each one the same amount. You don't want to turn any one anymore. Like if you turned one a full turn, it would change the trueness and roundness of the whole wheel. It wouldn't be drastic, you could just fix it. But it's better if you don't have to. So you pay attention. Here comes the valve hole. Don't want to go past it. There you go. That's one turn around the wheel. Now if I spin the wheel, I can see that the wheel came out a tiny bit, just a little bit in one spot. So it wasn't perfect with my turning of the spokes. Just make a little adjustment, loosen one spoke, tighten the other spoke, and now it's true again. So now I'll add another layer of tension around the wheel. But first, I'm going to switch the camera to time lapse so that it goes faster. Otherwise, we'll be here a while. But I'll make it quick and you'll see it in a big hurry. Because you're moving all the spokes, every single one is getting some more tension. You want to stop after each round of tension or after 2 half turns, and you squeeze the spokes in pairs like we did before to put some stress on the wheel and to try to stress relieve the spokes. You just have to go around one time. It just seats everything. Make sure if you made any changes to the wheel. I went around 2 times, but then you spin the wheel and again you check it to see if it came out, and if it needs a slight adjustment, you can make that adjustment. Usually you just have to turn a couple spokes that weren't turned quite as much as you thought they were when you made that tensioning, that one layer of tension. So we've gone around twice now. The wheel's round, true. So we'll keep going. We'll add one more. This wheel is fully tensioned and ready to ride now. So I actually have a tool. Most pro wheel builders have spoke tensionometers. They're not very expensive. This one's by Park Tool. It's a beautiful tool, and it's not that expensive. I think around $90 right now. But this tool actually puts a number on how tight the spokes are. And so I can put this on here, and by resting it and letting go, it reads a number here, and the number that it reads is 19. And I know that this is a 1.7 gauge spoke. And on this little chart here, if you look at it, it comes with all spoke tensionometers. It tells you that that's about 100 kilograms of force. Perfect. It's a front wheel. Rear wheels, sometimes you get the spokes a little tighter, especially on the right side. But for front wheels, that's a great tension. So you may not have a spoke tensionometer, and you don't need one. We didn't have them. This is a relatively new tool. For years we built great wheels with just our hands and feeling. One thing you know that the wheel is starting to get the right tension is when it gets difficult to turn the spoke nipples, when it's hard to turn the spoke wrench. The other thing is the spokes get very tight. When you squeeze them with your hands to stress relieve them, it hurts your hands. You know the spokes are getting tight when they're cutting into the palms of your hands. Some people have really tough hands. You may not feel it. So another way to go is to pluck the spokes and listen to the sound they make. You hear the high pitch? That high pitch tells you that they're tight, and they'll feel deader and duller, not as bright a tone when they're not tight enough. So that's a way to go too. If you can't remember that, or that doesn't sound right in the video, or you can't remember the tone or whatever, if you find a wheel that you have on another bike, maybe pluck the right side of the rear spokes or pluck the front spokes and listen to it and compare it to the wheel that you're building. If you can get it to a similar tone, you'll probably have the spokes tight enough at that point. These are very tight. We went around 4 times adding tension and brought it right up, and now it's a good wheel. So that was a lot, but I wanted to show you as much as I could so you'd get a real feeling for the time it takes and how much patience is required. And a radial wheel, the other thing is, it's not trued or tensioned, brought to full round, perfect round, any different than a cross spoke wheel. It's the same process. So different spoke patterns don't change things, and that's a good thing. Once you learn how to build a wheel, you pretty much know how to build all wheels. even if it's a through axle wheel, even if you decide to go with direct pull spokes, which are a little different than the spokes in this wheel, J-bend spokes, but it's the same basic process. So you're up to speed and ready to build as many wheels as you want. So I wanted to thank you for watching another video, and please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.